Welcome to LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education, a podcast that focuses on what is happening in education today, connecting everyone to the movers and shakers that are breaking boundaries in the education arena.
Hello and welcome to our podcast this week, LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education. My name is Jamie Saponaro, here with my co-host, Jerry Kimball, and we are talking about breaking boundaries by breaking the cycles of education that aren't working for all students today. And how is that done? Well, with our guests, we're talking about the power of music. Jerry, have you ever found that magic when you're working with students that just turns the corner for them?
Oh, absolutely. And for different kids, it's different things, but music seems to be the international piece that works with everyone.
It's so true. It's so true. But especially with our guest today, he goes the extra mile by shining a light on students so they understand their value and they can end up taking charge of their own future. His exceptional work has been highlighted on NPR and has led to an invitation to participate in a White House conversation on Hispanic males in the United States. His work has afforded him many community and professional honors.
So our guest today is Mervin Jenkins, and he's not your typical educator. Although he's a former middle school teacher and principal, he has done this as a hip hop artist, which I'm sure the kids loved. Merv uses his musical talents to inspire and bring joy to his students and the community. And Merv, we want to welcome you to the show. We're very happy to have you here today. As I was going through your LinkedIn profile, I noticed on there that kind of your mission statement is to bring joy to learning. And I was looking at that and I was thinking, Merv, I think you and I are probably contemporaries in that we're probably within that 10-year age span and grew up at the same time. And I know in my formative years in education, joy was not something that was important in education. In fact, teachers at the time, you probably remember this, Merv, were told not to smile until Christmas. That was their mantra. Do not smile until Christmas. And so you grew up with that. I grew up with that. And most of us kind of teach the way we were taught. What happened, Merv, that made you decide that joy was important in education?
Well, Jerry, first of all, thank you guys for opening up this opportunity. And a big shout out to, I know ClassLink sponsors what you've been doing. So once again, across the boards, big shout out. Thank you guys so much. And why don't we put that into action? I'm going to surprise you guys with something that's called the freestyle. And I pretty much make it up on the spot. So let's see how excited we can get folks about music. I'm going to turn up the music on my end. Okay. And it's important to hear the words because I'm making this up on the spot.
Okay.
All right. Just rock with me here. About 45 seconds, it'll be over. All right. Here we go, y'all. LinkedUp, haven't you heard? That's the podcast where educators seem to break boundaries at last. We took the past and linked it to a class. Feeling free at last while I'm pressing the gas. We're doing this for Jerry. We're doing this for Jamie. We do it for the teachers and students to bring changes. It's K-12, oh well, we about to do it, y'all. ClassLink and Nearpod, together we can do it all. It feels good. I feel so fortunate. We teach adults and got students in the mix. So if you're celebrating birthdays just like Jerry's dad or feeling down and out, perhaps you're feeling kind of sad, we got a smile on your face. Time is not for wasting. LinkedUp, Breaking Boundaries in Education, the podcast that's so good, you're loving it. Jamie and Jerry got us all tuned in, so grab your cup of joe. In case you didn't know, they got the best thing going right now from coast to coast. Not to brag or boast, I'm feeling like a champion. All linked up, y'all ready? Then let's begin.
I love it.
I think we have our new intro. What do you think?
Yes.
That is your intro. So there it is. That's the excitement you can create, spur of the moment, and that's where the magic happens. So anyway, I had to do that for you guys. It's my specialty. It's what I'm known for, the freestyle MC.
It's who you are and what you do. That was amazing. That was amazing. Oh my gosh.
And just off the top of your head, you do that.
I can, if you started pointing at your different items you were wearing, things on the wall. I could just put it into rhyme in real time. It's a gift and a curse, I say.
What
Wow.
a surprise. We love that.
Wow. That was perfect. Thank you.
Going back to the initial question, joy into the classroom.
Yes.
Actually, that idea, I can't take credit for it. It sprang from the creators of Flocabulary and the team out of New York City, Alex Rappaport, Blake Harrison. The two young men had a vision, and it became a movement. I was lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time, and I'll speak more on that a little bit later. But joy in the classroom, it happens to be something that was not consistently experienced by myself as a student, and unfortunately for so many other students and even stakeholders in the education community. It's a concept that's easily overlooked. And when you think about the research around it, it goes into student-teacher relationship. It actually speaks volumes about the power of joy and having fun in the classroom. You know, again, my own K-12 journey, there are less than a handful of educators that I can say I've had like a standout educator experience with. And quite frankly, you know, based on the color of your skin, social economic background, cultural background, where you live, and any combination of, you're much more likely to not experience having that standout teacher. And there's research behind that. In 2016, there was a study done, I want to say it was inequality in student discipline. And the researchers looked at various schools for over 900,000 students and found out that so many adults who were teaching them were so heavily influenced by media and stereotypes of students portrayed in the media versus them taking the time themselves to just determine what the true behaviors of these kids were and how they could best connect. So with all of that in mind, I feel like they allow us to tap into that realm of bringing joy into the classroom only if we open ourselves up and become listeners and learners, which is, if you've been in education, you know, it's kind of hard to step off that podium and be the guide on the side and actually let the kids show us a thing or two. And that's the magic of it. So each one teach one, joy in the classroom, there it is.
Yeah, so bringing that joy is about, I think what you're saying, the relationships that are being built so that you can actually dig in and really see what these kids are all about. And then, like you said, giving them the stage to empower them. It is. That joy comes when there's that mutual respect and that relationship. So it is so important. And you cultivate that through these amazing programs that you have been a part of. So there's the Life Through Music that we want to hear about, and the others. How did you get involved in these?
So Life Through Music is an organization that I founded back in 2005 as a high school assistant principal in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And just happened so I was a recording artist during the same time and heavily pursuing a career still in the music industry. But, you know, leading up to that point, I have been able to work with some of the biggest name in the biz, Grammy award-winning hip hop producers, and just so many others who had achieved what students even to this day aspire to do. The Life Through Music presentations, they were sort of a mix-up of keynotes that I gave about my journey and path in both education and hip hop music and culture. And then there were presentations for parents talking about just the idea that they are the biggest support system for their students. And here's some ways to best support them. And then there was Heart and Mind, which is a session for teachers. And it goes back to what you were just mentioning, Jamie, along the lines of having that respect, being open and honest with your students, and just how to really create that teacher-student rapport that we all want. And then there was No Pressure, which specifically deals with the students and becoming the best you. It's all about the ups and downs of peer pressure, which is something we never get rid of. Even as adults, we deal with peer pressure, like it or not. So that's that. And we've been able to do some great work. I've taken that around the country, but it's not the main 9 to 5. And we'll talk about that here shortly, but it's just great work. Yeah, you have given yourself to these programs because of your strong belief in the power of music and the power of
empowering others, right? Making them see their strengths so that way they can take charge of their lives and be confident in doing that.
Absolutely.
And that self-assurance, I think, is so important. You also shared with us, I got to see the rap, and we'll link it actually here too, Strong Men. And that was really, really moving. I thought that was fabulous.
Thank you. That was a project that two friends of mine, Amari Gamble and Luke Hodges, we came together and decided, you know what, with everything that was going on, let's form this group, Strong Men, Green Village, the name of the group, the song Strong Men. And we recorded that right here in Charleston, South Carolina. A lot of key things happened because, one, when we recorded the video, we didn't know we were doing it the day before the Francis Marion statue would be taken down. So we literally captured that statue in the video the day before it was taken down. So
my gosh,
made it that much more powerful. But yes, just a message for sign of the times, what's happening right now, and obviously the work that lies ahead of us. But thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah. And then the African American Male Initiative. Can you share a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, so about 5-6 years ago, I had a conversation with a superintendent at the time in Mequon Schools, which is one of the suburbs outside of Milwaukee. And we were sharing ideas about doing something with Black males, something empowering, uplifting. And after going back and forth and him working with his colleagues there in Milwaukee, they decided in partnership with Concordia University in Milwaukee that they would do the African American Male Initiative. And this is a 3 to 4 day program that engages young Black men in academic and instructional support. They get mentoring opportunities, there's community engagement, and a host of other things to help them basically transition into becoming both college and career ready. We actually had the 5th annual event this past summer. And unfortunately, because of the pandemic, it was done remotely for the first time. But again, a great turnout. It was another fantastic year for the group. We average around 100 boys, and they come from various school districts around the Milwaukee area. And I guess what was really powerful about that work is when I started at the time 5 years ago, I'm not sure where it's at now, but for Black men in the Milwaukee area in particular, between crime rates, poor health care, so basically the prison pipeline, health care, and just the workforce development, they were suffering probably at a number that was leading the country when it came down to that specific subgroup. So going in there and doing this work definitely is making a difference, and talk about a area that can certainly use it. So,
so fantastic. Really looking at root cause and looking at where the foundation needs to be, and Maslow as well is coming into play here, because we need to make sure that they are self-assured from the foundation. What is one pivotal situation, one pivotal example that you can provide from all these different initiatives that you've been a part of that really exemplifies the change that you can see in these programs?
Well, I love telling this story, and it doesn't hit the question spot on, but I like to highlight it because it shows where we can all have what I like to refer to, or my wife calls teachable moments. Yeah. So when I was an assistant principal in Chapel Hill, we would do these round robin workshop with our students. And basically incoming freshmen, one assistant principal would go over the discipline handbook, another would go over class schedules, and they would just rotate. So I had a group of students, and I happened to be going over the discipline handbook with this group. And I was doing popcorn reading. So I would point at one student and say, hey, read the first paragraph, and another student read the second paragraph, and so forth. And I got to one student, and in stature, the young man was way bigger than me. even as a freshman, and here I am, an adult. And I said to him, sir, can you read paragraph 7? And he didn't respond at all. Granted, his peers are all around them, at least about 25, 30 kids. And I say to him again, excuse me, sir, can you pick up and read that paragraph? And he looks at me and he responds, you read the effing paragraph. And of course, all the kids go, ooh. Now in that moment, like you're really processing really, really fast. And I knew a lot of people would have probably just reached over to the microphone and the radio and say, hey, I need a police officer or whatever the case might be. But it hit me in like a flash that, you know what, this young man is having trouble reading and you are putting him on the spot, asking him to read in front of his peers.
Right.
So I took the step down and just went on to another student and kind of got things back rolling without even engaging the young man any further. And when the group was dismissed, I walked up and I softly tapped him on the shoulder and said, hey, man, let me talk to you for a second. And he stopped and I said, you know what? First of all, I owe you an apology because I believe I might have put you out on Front Street. Be honest with me. Is it that you have a little trouble reading? And he just dropped his head and nodded. And I said, you know what? No worries. We're going to go up and see one of my favorite counselors and we'll remedy that. Let's go. And honestly, it turned into a great relationship. But when I look back at it and I look back at all the things we've seen in the news over the years, how quick something so simple can escalate into all the police snatch the child out of the desk and slam her on the floor and the list goes on and on, when all we got to do is just sometimes stop, take a step back, breathe deep, and approach it with a different lens. And that's what I had to do.
With building that relationship, and it's all about listening. I mean, it really does turn the corner, make the difference. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that word that we all hear a lot about today too is empathy. I think that was a great example of empathy and understanding where that student was coming from.
Absolutely.
And Mervin, you have had so many great experiences in your life with students and empowering them. And music has played such an important role. I want to ask you, if you had the soundtrack of your life, what would be 3 or 4 songs that would be on that list of the soundtrack? And what would be the relevance of those songs?
All right. So, Jerry, first of all, that's a great question. And honestly, depending on the day of the week, I'll have a different answer every day.
Love that.
Is life. Music is art. So with that being said, the best way I can break it down is for me, I probably go back to being at home with mom and dad. My dad, bless his heart, still alive. He still drives a 1953 Chevy. And I remember going into that car as a kid, and he'd have, for those of you that didn't know this existed, 8-track cassette tapes. And I would just push them into the cassette player and listen to Sam Cooke's Greatest Hits album. I mean, obviously there was Otis Redding, but when I think about the Sam Cooke, I remember those songs word for word. It's Another Saturday Night, Cupid, Draw Back Your Bow. The list goes on and on. Now, as I got older, still at home, I was in my dad's garage when I first heard the mega, or who would become a mega rap group, Run DMC. And the song was Sucker MC. It came on the radio, and for some reason, it just hit me in the heart. And I knew right then and there in that moment, this would be something that I would probably follow for a long time. And here I am still following. Now, the next big transition for me would have been the college years. And during that time, these two artists go neck and neck. Again, I know I'm not calling individual songs, but Bob Marley and Tracy Chapman. Bob Marley, Tracy Chapman, songs like Bob Marley's Redemption Song, Tracy Chapman's famous Fast Car. Like, for me, it showed that I was actually searching for meaning. It was a time for self-reflection. just seeking that worldly meaning on the life journey that we're all fortunate to be a part of. And then finally, this day and age, I would have to say that anything that my son does with his crew right now, it captures my attention because it actually reminded me of a lesson that I mentioned earlier that we've simply gotten away from, and that is being able to be open and to hear what young people are saying to us. And I say that, obviously it leads into, I'll make it a short story, but our son Torrin, he graduated college, he went to the Air Force, and when he came out of the Air Force, he started what I thought was a fantastic job in the health field, working at a clinic, and great benefits, good salary. And one day, after about a year or so of doing it, he said, "Mom, Dad, I'm going to quit my job and do music full time." I'm the last person in the world who should have blown up about it, but I did. I just went ballistic. And he ended up not speaking to me. Maybe him and Mom kept connections, but he and I didn't speak for a long time. And he ended up losing his apartment. He lost his car, was sleeping out on friends' couches because I told him he couldn't come back home. And lo and behold, after about 2 years of that, he signed not only a major record deal, but he did a huge endorsement deal with Red Bull. And long story short, too late, he made more money in 1 year than me and his mom together. And that's the life he's living. He's a full-time artist. And looking back, all I could think about was how I didn't help to uplift him when he said, "This is a venture I want to take," especially with my own background. But again, it's a teachable moment, and it also leads into the new era of music that I now listen to with an open mind, because hip hop is the voice of the youth, and that's just what it is. I'll always respect it as such.
Right. And sometimes our blind spots are to the people that are closest to us. We can see it in others, but the ones that are closest to us, we have the blind spot for. I wonder, what are the messages that his music is putting forth? Does he have particular message that he's...
Well, I'll be quite frank with you. He signed with this mega artist by the name of Young Thug, and the young people will definitely know who it is. The message right now is the message you probably get from any kid in his 20s or early 30s. I got to even go back to myself. I mean, when I was a high school assistant principal, I had a song that charted Billboard's top 100 hip hop and R&B singles. I wouldn't be most comfortable playing that right now today in my line of work and where I'm at in life, but it was for the time, and that's where he's at. It's all about the party right now.
Sure.
Hopefully, down the line, it becomes, as they grow older, something more uplifting for communities, and that's again the power of music and what it can do.
Absolutely. Celebrating right now.
Celebrating, absolutely.
Celebrating, yes. And we need some of that for sure.
And I think it's so fantastic, though, each of you, your son, you have taken a path with music as part of your career, but you did it in a different way. You kept it embedded in education. So tell us a little bit. So I know you were a teacher, you were assistant principal. Tell us your path, how you got to Flocabulary, how you got to Nearpod. I want to hear it all.
All right. So here's the thing. Flocabulary, and I know you guys are familiar with Flocabulary. We were pretty much a K-12 platform that offered lessons that were aligned to both state and national standards to engage students in all 4 content areas, along with vocabulary and other things like social and emotional learning, current events, and so forth. And we did it using hip hop songs. So this was literacy across the curriculum. It promoted 21st century development around critical thinking, collaboration, creativity. My track into Flocabulary goes back to that time as an assistant principal. I actually got invited to do a nationally syndicated radio interview with NPR. And during that interview, which they coined the rapping principle, these two young men in New York City happened to hear the interview, and they reached out. And that was Alex Rappaport, Blake Harrison, founders of Flocabulary. And they said, hey, we heard your interview. We're actually starting an organization that's going to use hip hop to teach, and would love for you to get involved, maybe do some songs. So I ended up being one of the very first recording artists for Flocabulary, with helping them roll out content. Now, do keep in mind, this is when Flocabulary was a book and CD platform, okay? So a long time ago, but that's what it was. And that work led to me doing some moonlighting work with Flocabulary. So even though I was a assistant principal, eventually principal, I would still make trips to places like Chicago, New York, somewhere out in the Midwest, Southeastern region, Florida, and do presentations to teachers and administrators about the power of Flocabulary and how it can be used in the classroom. So that started that journey.
So you were doing both at the same time?
I was doing both at the same time. I had a really cool superintendent. I'll never forget. I said to her, hey, when she hired me as a principal, and she actually hired me again years later for another job. But I said to her, look, I do this thing with this rap organization, and it requires me at least once a month to go to some city and train. And she was like, unless you're from schools like Philly, I'm open to it, and it only helps out the students that you're working with here in this district. So
I used it when I was a teacher, and then as a coach and mentor, it was the first thing I showed teachers to use, because it was just a great way to get across these concepts in a way that we couldn't just teach them in a normal way. It just spoke to them, sang to them, right, differently, much differently, and got the point across. They had that Vygotsky aha moment much better through vocabulary instead, through the rap that they were hearing.
Love it. So the one thing that a lot of people, well, I'll pick up with that. Once I left my principalship, I went into nonprofit work for 10 years as a assistant director for a college readiness program called AVID, Advancement Via Individual Determination. And during that time with AVID, I actually sort of kept contact with the Flocab guys, but not enough to really know what they were doing. I got busy, weren't doing the moonlighting anymore. And quite frankly, 10 years later, I get a call from one of the founders, and he's like, hey, would you like to come and work for us full time? And granted, music and hip hop, along with education, that's all I've known. So there was, I didn't even think twice. I said, hey, let's do it.
Your dream job, really, right?
It was the dream job. I tell people all the time, the only thing that could be or could have been better is if I was the founder of Flocabulary. But other than that, yes, dream job. So that being said, I came on board, and 4 months into the role, Nearpod acquired Flocabulary, which a lot of people still don't know. But about 2 years ago, Nearpod actually acquired Flocabulary. So now, although it's still two different platforms, Flocabulary now falls under the Nearpod umbrella.
See, it's funny because a couple months ago for a training I was doing, I was logging into Nearpod. I hadn't done it in a while. I always show that during my trainings as well. And when I went in and I was, trying to make a lesson, and I said, oh my gosh, I can pull in a Flocabulary lesson into my, wow, I had no idea.
That's why. And I mean, just for the folks that are listening, Nearpod is about making lessons interactive for students, and whether that's synchronous or asynchronous learning modes, you can do it. And you can imagine with going back to the pandemic and everything that happened, and school systems scrambling for ways that teachers could still engage their students, Nearpod was one of the perfect answers of, I'm sure, probably several that were out there. But we actually saw an explosion in school districts coming for what we had to offer because it so fit the times. And quite frankly, I don't see us going back. I think everybody's going to want to always be prepared to teach no matter what's going on in the world. And certainly our platform allowed us to do just that.
Well, I mean, it helps to differentiate as well, regardless of whether we're in person or we're remote. It's all about differentiation. And there are so many different opportunities for getting content to students within Nearpod, Flocabulary being a major one. So that's never going to go away. So and I think teachers, I just know from seeing on social media and the teachers that I've been working with, they almost can't live without Nearpod, whether they're teaching in person or remotely. So
well, that's great to hear because it means that I'll have a job. So, but I will say, what was it? 1st of January, I actually got a promotion to position as a senior brand ambassador for Nearpod, specifically working with the Flocabulary platform. And that has been a wonderful transition. Obviously, I'm still early in, but a great team we're working with. So big shout out to Madi, Kone, Marcella, that's my team. We're the brand ambassadors, and Madi leads the team. So we're looking at being able to present educators with opportunities to not only learn about the platform, but just see how powerful and tell some of the stories as we look for growth and expansion with Nearpod and Flocabulary.
Congratulations on that promotion. And the other thing is it goes right into your mission of helping kids have fun as they learn, because Nearpod really does allow the learning to be a little more fun than just the rote learning that has happened for so many years.
Absolutely, dear.
So it's a great fit for you, Mervin.
It's a perfect fit.
Yes.
You're always nervous when you go into something new. So obviously I'm going through that phase now where I'm like thinking of all my contacts, the networks, and quite frankly, you guys are inspiring me with this whole podcast thing because who knows?
Listen, I have to tell you, is when you wrapped at the introduction, I thought, you need to have your own podcast and you need to do this throughout the podcast.
Yes.
So we'll do a podcast smash once you end up starting your own, because you really would be a perfect fit. It would work in perfectly. I mean, you are breaking boundaries in all different ways, especially using music to bring joy. And you continue to do that in every role that you've had with your missions with the different organizations you've worked with and in each of your educational roles. And we are so happy to have been able to bring this to our audience and for you to share joy with all of our audience in this way. So thank you so much.
And Merv, thank you for lifting people up as well and breaking boundaries and helping the students that have been disenfranchised through all of the work that you've done, through all of the programs that you've started. Even your work with AVID is lifting people up to a higher level, and that is so important.
I'll end on this note, and people who know me, I don't like to pull my punches, but it's really powerful to see you guys. And when I say you guys, people who aren't of the same background, skin color, that are out here helping to promote and send a message, because sometimes we get caught up in believing that we can do it by ourselves. And it was never meant to be that way. It's all about teamwork and coming together for a common cause. So whenever there's an opportunity, and you guys are definitely doing it, the message you're putting out, the number of educators you're touching, this is what we need more of. So honestly, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Please keep up the good work, and let me know when you're ready to get that official Merv special theme song for the show. And I got you guys. Got you.
I think we're ready. Merv, that reminds me of that Swahili quote. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. So I think that's, and Jamie and I truly are advocates, and we love to use this platform as advocacy to move to move everyone forward. So thank you for being a part of our show today.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. And if you would like to stay linked up, be sure to follow us on Apple and Spotify and subscribe to us on YouTube.